This episode of Skirmish Supremacy is brought to you by Reformation Brewery, the official beer of your game night.
I've sealed off the office and protecting it because this is where I do most of my painting and that kind of stuff. And I realized that I really needed to do this because of a few specific instances that are not fit for human consumption. But some of the ones that were, my paint table's in here, and I had one cat apparently jumped up onto the paint table and stole a model that I had just primed. Or something. I know it was primed, and they had taken it in the middle of the night and squirreled it away into the water bowl. And then this is when we had carpet. Proceeded to take it and bat it around the carpet after it had been dunked into the water bowl. And this was extra annoying because not only was it primed, but I had used cork for basing. So the cork had soaked up all that water. The primer had gotten that slurry kind of thing because it wasn't completely cured yet. And then cat fur started to coat it from being batted around the carpet, all that. So that's when I decided that I needed to do something about cats in my office. Because I know a lot of people complain about how their cats help them paint and sit on them in awkward ways. They'll sit on a shoulder, they'll sit in the way, sit on a computer, that kind of stuff. But I don't see too many stories, it feels like, about cats actively stealing their toys, stealing their models, and then causing you to have to strip it and repaint it. But that's what mine do. And I got 9 of the bastards. I got 9 of those 9 cats and 2 dogs, and they're all super eager to help in any way they can.
Wow.
Welcome to another episode of Skirmish Supremacy Podcast. Tonight, our host, Robin, is going to talk about it.
Yeah, you need cats? I got cats.
This is episode I don't even know, and it's now titled Robin and His Cats.
Robin and his cats, and the cats, not the cats. And
so tonight, Tim will not be joining us. He has recently found that he has a lack of cats in his house, so he is currently out visiting various shelters to find a cat.
Yeah, I mean, he could just come to me. I could drop him off. It's fine. No, he wants free range. He wants untainted, unrestrained.
And this is, for those of you listeners that know anything about our host, Tim, he's the type of person that he just really wants. When something catches his fancy, he just needs to go out and get his hands on it. And he also is kind of not in a bad way, but he's a bit of a brute. So I think for him, it's about that hunt. He wants to get out there and he wants to see if he can find a cat in the wild in its natural habitat and just scoop it up. So I think he's somewhere maybe downtown Atlanta is probably where he'll end up.
Well, there's
the cats, but I'm not sure those are cats that you want to take home.
Well, there's a couple cat cafes if he wants, to go the easy route. Atlanta's open a couple cat cafes. Actually, one's opening up in Marietta pretty soon.
Oh God, that scares me. I understand that people like cats. I mean, I paint little figures. People look at me funny when I tell them that. But I don't know. Cat cafes scare me.
But I mean, somewhat back on topic. There is a topic.
Wait, we have a topic?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's cats.
My cat has also gotten into stealing of miniatures, and it's kind of funny because I think he's playing a bit of a game. And at first, I started just noticing that I had some miniatures left out. It was some dust models I had left out on the table, and at first I was like, "Oh, how'd this model end up on the floor? Maybe table got bumped at some point and it fell on the floor.
That's how it starts.
Then I started finding models in places that it was almost like army men that have their own, that come to life, like Toy Story. But then I finally caught him red-handed, and he had picked one off. The mistake he made was he picked one off the painting table, and decided to carry it off with him. And that's when I caught him red-handed.
Yeah, you gotta go for the ones that you're not actively working on. So the backup, the
right
in the bullpen, ready to get work done.
Then it just would have been very frustrated trying to figure out where my machine gunner was.
He was just trying to get in games of Dust. Greg would just point him towards the local game store and tell him to go buy his own. Greg is happy with your cat. You need to start buying him an army. That's all.
It's just all a master plan. Maybe cats are telling us to support our local game stores more.
At least with Dust.
And whatever Robin made.
Well, and at least with Dust, the plastic has a little bit of give to it, so that way if they chew on it or not.
There's no chewing. It's just like it's a bit of a steal game, I feel.
All right.
It's how much can he get away with?
That's fair. And the plastics are easy to carry. They're lightweight. Not like a one of the old metal dreadnoughts or something. Dreadnought in a sock.
Man.
Scenario.
Dreadnought in a sock.
Yeah, man. Best defensive weapon at the hobby shop. Dreadnought in a sock.
Another good possible episode title.
Dreadnought in a sock. Oh my god.
Yeah.
The sad part is it's not even that I can't imagine somebody actually walking around with that swinging it.
I've got a few on the shelf here. I can probably get 2 or 3 dreadnoughts. If you get a big enough tube sock, you could get a couple of them in there.
I mean, yeah.
I don't have very big tube socks.
Well, you are not living.
I tend to prefer like a more athletic sock. And what's funny is most of my socks, I don't know why they do this, and I don't know if you guys have any socks like this, but they mark on the sock either an L or an R. Yet there is no difference in how the sock is made. It's just so that when you put the sock on and later you look at your feet, if they happen to be wrong, that you feel inept at life.
I don't buy socks that tell me which foot they're supposed to go on.
Yeah, no, I'm a self-independent sock wearer. I can wear socks however I choose. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's a common thing on socks. You should probably stop buying from the toddler section.
Well,
I mean, it's only a problem if your name's on them, right?
That's really helpful though when the tags have different animals on them, because I can match it to the animals on my shirt and pants, know that I have a matching outfit.
So actually, on that very topic, I because I was working with a bunch of guys that had recently gotten out of the military, and they're like, I don't know what to wear, retired after 20 years, and now they're supposed to wear, semi-business, casual attire, and they're like, I don't know what to wear, or whatever. And I was like, they have Garanimals for kids. I need beerables for adults. and so, you put like pale ale on a shirt and a pale ale on a, pair of pants, and those go together. Maybe you have tequila on one and, tequila on another.
Yeah. All right. I can get behind that.
So that way, you use the different color, different colors of beers and, liquors and all that, and beer and liquor don't go together, so you don't mix those two.
This is like the type of thing that you see as a Facebook ad as you're scrolling through Facebook, and you're like, that's amazing. But I feel like if you were to kickstart that, you'd probably do pretty well.
So a couple of years ago, I
It's weird.
swear I saw a Kickstarter for that, almost that very thing. I forget what it was, but I was like, I had this idea. I kind of hate myself for not having, gone.
You kind of got to do the marketing video that's very like a Dollar Shave Club, which is the dude walking around a bunch of people in totally tacky, mismatching clothes, and he just rips their shirts off, and boom, it matches all of a sudden. He's like, your problem is you were drinking your liquor first.
There you go. Yes, it is. And maybe I have to see if that's out there and actually put it out there.
Speaking of guerrilla marketing, I don't know if we were speaking about that, but we are now. Domino's fixing potholes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Gamers everywhere rejoice because your models won't rattle around on your way to the game store. See, I made it relevant.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you'll be able to get to Dragon Star Hobbies over in Athens, Georgia, where they have fixed over 150 potholes via Domino's. They've all been stenciled with the Domino's logo, so you know which potholes have been covered by your favorite, sort of favorite, whatever, not as disgusting. Maybe it is. I don't know. Pizzeria. Can you call Domino's a pizzeria? Is that an appropriate term?
So. I don't see why not. They make pizza.
Pizza has a very like artistic sort of flair to it, though. I feel like that's a little too creative for Domino's.
I don't know. I kind of have to disagree. Pizzerias have been around for a lot longer than people have been like, oh, well, that's the artistic name.
So here's a great question for you. You guys order a pizza from Domino's. Which screensaver do you choose to follow to track your order?
Well, usually it's delivered so fast I don't have a chance to change it.
Well, have you seen their different like driv?
And this show is sponsored by Domino's.
I have not had Domino's in probably a decade because my wife is actually allergic to almost everything they offer.
That's just depressing.
Yeah, they use whatever butter garlic sauce thing they drench a lot of their crust in is got soy in it, so we can't order from there. Well, now, Marco's.
You and the cats could probably do a Domino's pizza.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Some of the cats love garlic.
Stop stealing my minis. Have a pepperoni.
Pretty much. We got a pizza cat. Yeah, if you remember the pizza rat thing that went around the internet a while back, one of our cats is basically that rat. Which is also super entertaining because the Staten Island minor league baseball team, Yankees, apparently are changing their name to the Pizza Rats for about 5 games. You can get merchandise and all that fun stuff. It's pretty entertaining. So they're embracing their Pizza Rat fame.
That's kind
if
of
you're
awesome.
Into minor league baseball.
Or even if you're not and you're just into Pizza Rat.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. I really like their logo. It'd actually be kind of cool to get a couple of decals, make some decals made of their logo and put it on some like Team Yankee type stuff or some sort of like U.S. Allies World War II game, maybe like Dust or something like that, or, and just gloss over the logo with the Pizza Rat logo. That'd actually be pretty awesome.
That sounds pretty epic.
I gotta figure out if that's a possibility.
I mean, it should be now.
I know, right? I think they posted a picture of some of the Desert Fox stuff, or not Desert Fox, Desert Scorpions, that allied faction group.
Right.
There was a picture recently that showed off some of the trucks and Jeeps and everything, and I'm kind of hoping that's a bit of a hint towards some new stuff for that particular group.
Well, so they've got a bunch of new stuff coming out for Gen Con and all that. They're going to have the starter box for it.
Oh, okay.
Which will come with the it won't be this, or it won't be this guy who's Sean, who they're giving out as a convention exclusive.
Yeah, but he'll have his sword drawn. Like I think in the
Right.
photo it had his sword drawn and everything.
Right. So he'll be carrying the sword, and then it'll have the first infantry 1 unit to go with him in that box, and there's going to be a new truck in there.
Very cool.
And then what else is it? There's some other stuff that is supposed to be coming out for them. I don't remember what it is right now, but
yeah, I had no idea. So I've been kind of looking at those guys a little bit as like a secondary faction if I decide to do something other than Steel Guard while I wait for Japanese. And I've been debating doing like the all truck force, no infantry whatsoever, nothing but trucks and jeeps and all that business. And the one hero because free hero points.
Right. Well, and I mean, if you're doing something like that you'd have to go with Greg and Izzy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. It fits really well, actually.
Well, yeah.
I think you can get 6 vehicles in there and Greg and Izzy in there pretty smoothly at like 50 points or whatever it is.
So, I will say, Nick, I'm a little jealous. I was listening to the Oak and Iron episode that you guys recorded recently.
Mm-hmm.
About your adventures at NashCon. That sounds pretty freaking cool.
The Oak and Iron?
And Iron, yeah, sounds like a good time.
It was. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a small game for what Oak and Iron is going to be when it releases. But yeah, no, I mean, I did. I had a lot of fun playing it, even though, like we were saying, the dice just went absolutely to crap on both of us. So
all I heard was that Tim was firing blanks the entire time.
it seemed like it at one point because just how the mechanics work. So you have to get certain dice to hit. So you throw 5 dice and nothing. Hit. Oh, your hull or whatever is strength 2, so you don't actually it bounces off your hull.
And so Dust uses a similar kind of mechanic where you're looking for certain matching symbols on specialty dice, but they use weight of dice to kind of counterbalance some of that. Do you think that Oak and Iron might have the problem where you're not throwing enough dice to actually be effective like you would in Dust or something like that?
Not necessarily. So in Oak and Iron, the mechanic, the fatigue mechanic, will reduce your overall dice pool. And there's not really too many ways of upping your dice pool. There are some, and some of it will be cards or upgrades. And then, different, you can possibly take different size guns and all that. But for the most part, I don't. So on average, even the smallest ships that we were playing with had 5. I think it was 5 or 6. With the biggest one having 8 guns. So yeah, I think it was 6 and 8.
Dice per gun kind of thing, or
what's that?
Is you roll 1 dice per gun, or
no? It's just you have 8 dice, for your shot with the big one.
Okay.
And you had 6, I think 6 with your small one.
It's determined based off like a card or something then?
Yeah, so it's just based off of your profile. So this is just how many shots the ship has.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I forget the size of the vessels. It was, I think, maybe light frigate and brigantines or something like that. Maybe sloops and a light frigate. Because there was 2 the same size and then a bigger ship. But so you roll those dice, and fatigue can take some of those dice away. And the more fatigue you have, the more dice you lose when you go to shoot. So it's a balance of, do I work to take the fatigue off, or do I just try and get my shot, just like this? But like the 2 little ships had a defensive 2, and the big one had a defensive 3. And there wasn't a whole lot of ways that I, at this stage, that there was to like really increase, your hull or anything like that. So I don't see it in the future, unless, it's just a really big ship, its hull, increasing. But if it's a really big ship, there's going to be a lot of other ships that are, the same size, or there's going to be other ships that are the same size. So they're rolling the same amount of dice at each other. So I think it'll be even there. There will be some things that are potentially, faction, derived, and then different upgrades that may, change some of those balances. But
It was, do you know if there's a way to combine fire? Like if because I remember them talking about squadrons of ships or smaller groupings of ships and things like that. So in order to take down one of the bigger vessels that might show up, having a chance for you with your smaller stuff, I would imagine you had to like do some sort of coordinated fire thing.
Right. So what can happen is as you're going along, if all of your ships, including whichever ship has your commander on it, are in a line, and that is you have the front end of the ship behind, it is behind the back of the ship. So it's like you can draw a line from the back to the front of another one. So they have to line up, and as long as they line up, all those ships can shoot at the same time. So that's how you can combine fire. So, like, we had 3 ships, and as long as it was all 3 ships in a row, they could shoot.
Okay.
Now, when I say a row, there is some latitude because there's the ship, and then they have a base, and it's that base edge. So it has a front base edge and a back base edge, and that's a little bit bigger than the ship. And as long as those line up, and that does allow for the ships can be turned, but those base edges you have to be able to basically connect them. They don't have to touch, but they have to be within, I believe it was an inch of each other.
Okay.
So if your ship was an inch and an eighth behind the other one, you're not actually in a squadron.
Okay. I think that's very similar to what you used to see in the Spartan game stuff, like Firestorm Armada and Dystopian Wars, all that stuff. I don't know if anybody ever tried those. But they did have like the combined fire kind of idea. You had to be within a certain range or measurement of each other in order to do that for your squads and everything, and still be able to draw a line of fire with whatever side of gun you're using, whether it's a front arc or a side arc, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it sounds kind of similar, which is handy.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you end up in those situations where you can't possibly do any damage. So it makes sense. I get it. Right.
So, and even with all the ships lined up, like I said, you can form an arc and still have your ships in a line. So they could all be drawing a bead on the same ship, or you could even split your fire. And the idea behind it is that when you play your initiative cards and all that, there's somebody signaling off of your lead ship, this is what you're supposed to do. And so if you're that close and you're in that order, you can act together because you're all seeing the orders relatively quickly. It's not taking time to really, get passed along. So you'll be able to act together, which also can work out because it's a back and forth activation. You go, I go, and if they have the initiative, they can, they may take out one of your ships before you have a chance to, have all of them shoot. But if they're all squadroned together, they may shoot once and then you get to unleash, your whole volley on them. So, it does become a weight of fire because it's all at once versus being spread out.
Very cool. So another kind of question I kind of thought of when I was listening to that episode, because it just for the peek behind the curtain, we don't actually talk about these episodes. Nathan and I just listen to them and talk amongst ourselves. Go B team. It's not until we get on a legitimate episode that we get to ask questions about these things, because otherwise they just mute us. So,
oh man,
when I first heard the scale of the ships, it was like 1/600th, which comes down to like 3 millimeter. I was like, oh shit, that's super tiny. Because when I tend to think of 3 millimeter stuff, I think of more ground force stuff and micro armor and those kinds of companies. So there was a little bit of conversation about ships and all that. Do you know if there's a current market of like this kind of stuff that's already out there? You can start planning a little bit ahead of time, or is this going to be, is Firelink going to be like the only place offering this style of ship, this scale?
It's going to be very difficult to make that small of terrain.
For that, well, so making the ships that small, you broke up on me, so I didn't actually.
That's a super tiny monkey.
That is really small palm trees.
Yeah,
really small. The blunder monkeys are going to be teeny tiny, but there will be blunder monkeys.
I mean, we're talking like 1.5 millimeters for a blunder monkey, I think.
It can happen and will.
It's in the 0.millimeters at this
point. But I know that actually during some of the different swap meets, or some of the different vendor stands in there, which just seem to be people actually trying to get rid of their stuff, some of their older stuff. There was some 1/600 ships in there that were around the same time period. The ships are about the size of the Pirates of the Spanish Coast. That old push out card. You build the ship out of the thick plastic card.
Yeah, sorry,
I didn't compare it to a Hot Wheel.
Yeah, they're roughly about the size of a Hot Wheel.
See, that makes that.
Yeah, there we go. That I can relate to. I didn't start thinking about historical games until I was actually older.
Yeah,
I'm not used. I'm not like you.
Know. So they had a bunch of different expansions for Pirates of the Spanish Main. If that's the right name for it, because they had a bunch of different fantasy and stuff like that it was set it, that the game was, you could buy ships for and play the game. Because that's actually what we used for the demo.
Oh, okay.
is those ships.
All right, fair.
For play testing purposes.
And you already covered that, no Barbary Coast Ottoman Empire for a while, which is super disappointing.
They are going there, and it's actually going to be easier than Blood and Plunder, so they'll be there before Blood and Plunder is.
Cool. I'm happy to hear that.
So another game that's kind of on that like smaller scale that I really want to try out is Blood Red Skies.
Yeah. So we were set right next to the Warlord booth, and they had Blood Red Skies, and they actually had some of the American planes out, the P-51s, and I was like, oh man, I may have to buy this game and pick those up, because I've been looking at it. And then I blinked and all of the P-51 boxes were gone. So I was like, oh, well, that made my decision easier. I can wait again.
I've always been a big World War II aircraft buff. And so I'm really hoping that that game continues to do well and that they release more plane expansions and such. Because, one thing if they had F4U Corsairs, those naval aircraft with the cool like kind of
Yeah.
bird shaped wings,
Yeah.
or even the Lightning. I mean, I think that it looks like a game that they can do a lot with, and they can take it so many different places and put so many different cool planes in it. And I know it's still pretty new, and I gotta jump in and try it. I've seen some people play it, and I've heard from some people who have played it, and it sounds like a really good time. I just haven't had time. Been working too much, and I've had too many other important / not the important things to take care of.
That's been life lately.
Looks like one of the other things I need to get as you know, we record this on Google Hangouts so we can all see each other. I'm not really sure what the benefit of that is, to be totally honest. But I'm starting. One thing I noticed is that you guys both have these cool headsets going on. Yeah, you know, Robin's rocking the dark side over there with the
Yep. Star Wars branded shenanigans.
and,
I mean, this is the perk of being a gamer. You know, you got to make sure you can yell at people across the internet.
I do have my. I didn't even think about that. I do have a gaming headset.
Yeah, I mean that's all it is.
I'm a big. Okay, on a video game tangent, Robin, have you seen the trailer for Battlefield 5?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's very intriguing. I haven't really played Battlefield since 4, I think it was. Or yeah, before they delved into cops and robbers and all that stuff.
Which was an excellent game. People really gave it a lot of crap, but it was actually really good.
Battlefield Cops and Robbers.
Yeah, Hardline.
Yeah, Hardline. Yeah.
I must have slept through that one.
Yeah, it was one of those. It got released, and there was a lot of immediate, not necessarily anger, but disappointment and confusion. Definitely, I think was probably what that release met with.
Well, you know, because it kind of they changed their game modes up a bit, and they focused on some different things. One of the modes, I guess we call it, that they focused on pretty primarily was one called Hardwire, where if you played Battlefield or know anything about Battlefield, usually it's done objective based, and it's always kind of been one of two game modes has been the predominant one, where they have a rush style where you have to take objective A and B, and once you've taken A and B, then you advance to the next one, the next set of A and B until you do that times, right? Or you have like a conquest mode where you have 5 or so, you know, like 3 to 5 objective points on the map, and you take and hold them, and as you progress through the game and you kill the bad guys or whatever, those teams go through the tickets, and ultimately one side will win. In what Hardline did, Battlefield Hardline did, is they went through and they made a game mode where they basically took all those objective points and they made them vehicles. So now, in order to capture an objective point, you had to be in that vehicle, and you had to be driving it. In order to capture it, you had to get in the vehicle and drive the vehicle. So, totally different play style than what everybody was used to, right? So, you drive around, and if you blew up the vehicle, the objective point goes away and would respawn like the other player would respawn. That was its main point. So, it was pretty cool. It was pretty different, and it wasn't quite the big. I think the reason why it didn't quite do as well as normal is because it wasn't what people are used to. You know, they're used to these big, sprawling battlefield maps where you just have two big groups of teams going at each other. Where this was a little more scenario based, if you will, and the other play mode that I really liked. There was one I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called. There were a few different ones. Blood Money is what it was called. And so one team had this armored. Both teams had armored cars, and it was essentially like a take on Capture the Flag, where you would run to the armored car, and there was money in the armored car, and you'd sit there and you'd steal the money, and put the money in your bag. It would count up, right? The longer you were there stealing money, You'd count up until you had a bag full of money on your back. And then you'd have to take that bag full of money and run it back to your armored car. And if you got shot and killed along the way, you'd drop all the money and someone could pick up that money. They could take it back to their armored car. And you kind of did that back and forth, and when you hit a certain amount of money stolen at the end of the game, that would determine the winner. And I thought that was a blast, because it was more like, it wasn't quite a huge like 32 or 32 style game. It was more kind of, it was best in smaller teams. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like 10 or 12 or something like that. But I had a group of friends that I played with, and we would just clean house playing Blood Money. So anyway, it's totally different, and I think that's what kind of set up a lot of the old school hardcore Battlefield players. But I think one reason why I enjoyed it so much is because I had just that group of friends that really enjoyed it, and so we all kind of took to it, just because mostly at that time we were all playing together. And even on Battlefield 1, which I think is a much better game, and the theme is more traditional Battlefield, just set in World War One, I didn't have as many friends playing it, so I haven't even played Battlefield 1 as much as I did Hardline, even though I would say that it's a better game.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that the social aspect of Battlefield is what kept me into the game and what actually caused me to get out of it. You know, the very few people that I was playing with at the time just had other things. They moved, that kind of stuff. And other games were coming out, other priorities. You know, everybody's got a backlog, so it's just a matter of what you decide to focus on.
Well, it's a huge thing with any game, and I mean, you're gonna play. Ultimately, when I think back to like when I would go over to friends' houses or whatever, and I always go to the friend's house that had the N64. Growing up, shows my age, but I was still growing up around the time of the N64. But you'd go over to the neighbor's house, or your friend's house, where they had the M64, because there was no online multiplayer game, and you would go over and you would play whatever game he happened to have. You weren't picky at that time, those day and age, because your mom may not have allowed you to buy certain games, so you're playing. One game we played a ton, and if you've ever seen it, you would have maybe seen it in like some random arcades in like a Red Robin or that kind of type of thing. But it was a game called Cruising World USA.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really terrible racing game. It's really not a good game at all.
that one is definitely one of those games that people know. That one got around.
It's fairly, but we played
classic.
It like crazy. We played it like crazy, and this was before he got Smash Brothers and those sorts of things, and Mario Kart. And I think when he got Smash Brothers, we stopped playing. We basically always played Smash Brothers at that point. But and I think that's very much kind of to the point with games now, whether it's a video game or a miniature game or a board game or whatever, you're going to play what other people and your friends are playing, because naturally you need people to play with. If you are really into a game but no one wants to play it with you, you're not going to play. This is how it is. Unless you find a play. But
it goes a long way to being that motivator, and not only that, but having local support for that kind of thing. If your game store doesn't see people playing the game, then they're going to stop carrying it, and they're going to stop, offering anything for it. New players are not going to be aware of its existence because it's not sitting on a shelf. They're not seeing anybody playing it in the shop or anything like that. So, you've got to have some sort of presence, no matter what.
Exactly, and it's really true. I mean, and it's like you walk into a store, and there's a few games you're always going to see. You're always going to see people playing Warhammer. Depending on the type of store you're at, too, you may see a lot of Star Wars X-Wing. There's kind of those big games that have a lot of money, get into a lot of different people's hands, and that have had following for a really long time. You're going to see that kind of stuff over and over and over again. But if you're a game designer, or you have somebody that has a game that you're trying to get out there, it's so important to have people in stores playing that game. Because if I come into a game store, particularly a game store that I've never been in, the first thing that I'm always really drawn to see what people are playing, and a lot of times I can determine really really fast. I'll just kind of do a scan of all the tables, right? And for the most part, you'll glance over it and not think anything of it because it's all stuff you've seen before. But if you see someone playing something, like what is that? You're immediately gonna. I almost always walk over, and I'll kind of watch for a bit. And if it looks like they're having a good time, and they're not going to be irritated if I talk to them a little bit, I'll ask them what they're playing. And because it's cool, it's cool when you see different things, and I think a lot of people are like that.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, and that's the big thing, and if nothing else, you see it happen, quite regularly at Gigabytes. There are some of those core games, but there's the other games, that are just on that edge. They'll somebody will pick up the banner and everyone will kind of dust off their models and play it for a while, and then it kind of drops off in lieu of something else because somebody brings back another game, or new stuff comes out for a game, and so these other games get kind of set to the side for a little bit, and once again you're off to the races to play that game.
It was interesting how many people I've noticed too, particularly like at Discover, as I've done at Discover games close to me, as I've come out and done some Dust events with Unic.
Yeah.
How many players have shown up and like, oh, I've had Dust stuff for like years, and I haven't seen anybody play it. And I saw you guys were going to do an event, so I brought it all down. Like they're blowing the dust off the.
Oh yeah,
literally blowing the dust off their Dust figures to come down and play because they're like, sweet, somebody's playing again. I have this stuff. Let's play.
That's at the events that we've done, and that's been Gigabytes in here, but at least once a week, if not more, in the official Dust group, you see people go, I didn't realize Dust was still alive. At Adepticon, somebody walked by and went, wait, Dust? Like, Dust Warfare, Dust Tactics? And they're like, yeah. And they were like, I thought it was dead. And walked away with, like, huge armfuls of stuff. Because they were like,
yeah, I love this excited. Game. They're like, oh, shoot, people are playing this. Sweet. Buy him back in.
Yeah, so, there is, it is, sometimes like, oh, that game isn't dead. There are people playing it. I'm going to go get my stuff out. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, awareness goes a long way. And that's, like what Nathan was saying earlier about game devs and getting awareness and kind of FaceTime with folks. There's a lot of things getting released now more than ever. And keeping track of all that stuff, figuring out what's new from individual companies, third-party bit sellers and stuff like that. There's so much content at any given day, it feels like. And some seasons get worse than others, the con seasons and stuff like that. It can be extraordinarily difficult to keep up with and just be aware of what's been released.
Oh, definitely.
And it's interesting too because you have a little bit of difficulty where, like for instance, I'm a Blood and Plunder player. I love Blood and Plunder. I'm on the Facebook pages, so I can see anytime I want to reach out to Blood and Plunder players and ask them a question about something, like I can do that. I'm going to get an answer within seconds sometimes, because they've got a huge community, a really good support page on Facebook. And that's true for a lot of games. There's a lot of different games that have those communities, and Facebook is a huge tool that kind of links a lot of those people together. But what's difficult is that if for a player that is interested in, or maybe not even interested, if they don't even know about a game like that, it can be. I feel like it can be kind of hard to find some of those communities sometimes. They're not always out in the open, and I think that might be something where, I don't know. I mean, I feel like you have to kind of go searching for some of those things sometimes. Is that something you guys have noticed, or?
Yeah, I mean, there is always a, trying to find, you may have run across something and you're trying to find, well, let's see, who's playing this. Let's, I need more details on this before I go crazy, and you don't find any group dedicated to it, or they may have a group for it, or they may have a just like a company group, or they just may have a Facebook page. One good example, and Benson says that he's been told he's not allowed to have a Facebook group for it, but I keep telling him he needs one, is for Exiles and Mindworm Games. So he doesn't even have an Exiles page; he has a Mindworm Games page. So if you don't know that it's it's Mindworm Games, and Exiles, it may be really hard to find that game, because if you do a search for Exiles on Facebook, you're going to get a lot of
Right.
other crap too.
No, exactly, and that's kind of the point I was trying to get to, fairly boringly. It's just that, like, it's the old adage of you don't know what you don't know, and I think it's super important for game developers and these companies to, some companies do it very, very well, and others have a tough time. I mean, but you have a lot of independent developers and people that are promoting their games and don't have a lot of time for the marketing or those sorts of aspects, because they're trying so hard just to do the best they can getting their game made and the content for it and what have you, that marketing becomes really difficult. But it's so important to just get players aware of those support communities, because your players are going to help each other out. The community is people need people to play the games with. So encouraging your community to be really open and supporting that is huge.
Right. And it's community is a multifaceted thing, and I've been having a lot of discussions about it here lately. But because you have the game shop owners who are trying to, at the end of the day, they're trying to make sales, but so they're also trying to cater to what people are going to play. I can't fault them for either one of those, wanting to make sales and wanting to cater to what's going to sell. That's why, like you said earlier, you walk in and you're almost always going to see 40K. Pretty much any game shop you walk into, they're going to have either a very large section or an entire wall that's dedicated to 40K, and and maybe GW as a whole. So Age of Sigmar, 40K, Necromunda, the different board games that have come out, the paint racks, because it can consume, and it's always going to sell because it's always going to draw people into it.
Right.
And then you're going to have your other games that are in there as well. Blood and Plunder, or Relic Blade, or just any number of other games that are out there. And a game shop owner's got to be able to make choices that are good for the store, and that means keeping up with whatever's popular, keeping around what is going to sell.
Almost like they need to start. What? Because you have a lot of events that are done for specific games, where it's like, oh, come out for this game and try this game out if you've never tried it before. I almost wonder if, and I haven't seen this done. There may be people that do this, and I just haven't seen it done. Almost would be a good idea to do kind of a mini convention at some of these game stores, where you could bring in your employees or your community players or whatever, and have people come in and set up demos and have a day where you could have 10 to 20 games being played. So someone could show up and try out a bunch of different games in one day, because when you have those events, like for instance, if you if you had an event for Blood Red Skies, let's say, you know, you're always gonna have the people that are interested in historical games, or somebody that's been eyeing that game for a while, maybe, or somebody that likes planes. You know, those people will come in. But everyone else is going to be like, well, that doesn't look like the game I'm really interested in. But if you had an event where it's like you had that game and 15 other games, or even if it was, if you could only do 6 other games or 5 other games, if you had multiple demos going on of different things, I think the overall audience that you'd bring in would be much more diverse, and you'd be able to show off a lot of different things at once.
Possibly, yeah.
Logistical issues with that aside, that's something that I think would be cool to see more of. I would go to a day like that because I think it would be a lot of fun. I could see a lot of different people that I'd never played with before because, hey, that guy's a big Relic Blade player. Well, I haven't played it yet. Well, now I get to try it out and play it with that. Meet somebody new and also play a new game.
Yeah. So I'm not doing exactly what you're talking about, but I am working with David over at Gigabytes, David and Rob, and probably every other Sunday is going to be a set. I'm getting a few different tables reserved, and it's going to be different games. It may be, for a month or something like that, it's the same game, and then switch out and, run a different game, or, and kind of get people's ideas. Because the other problem that you run into is you have one of those days where you have 1 or 2 people that do a demo, and maybe there's something going on where all the people who were interested didn't have a chance to get out there, just because life is life. So the idea, being, and, possibly even once it gains enough traction, making it where people can vote. What game do you want to see? Here's some of the new ones.
Like review times too. Like you get a lot of, we were talking about like player review feedback on after a couple weeks set. Like, is this something that you would want to see a campaign
right. Right. It can also, it will give, David, a little bit more chance, for, games for, people to go, yeah, hey, I like this. I would, I'd buy the books or whatever.
I think that's a great idea because, you see the success that like the slow grow league that Jim did at Gigabytes, right? How successful that was for the store. You kind of take something, and that didn't run that long, but it's still a bit of a commitment. It takes a while, and people are kind of in and out. So your format is even taking that and simplifying it even further, where it's almost more like, sounds like it's like an in-depth. It's more than a demo, but it's less than a campaign. It's like a
right. I mean, it's just casual gaming and trying out new games.
Yeah.
So, demos play, a little bit more because I have a number of games that, I've personally invested in that, I would like to see catch on and get played. Wild in the Streets, Relic Blade. I've got War Rocket from Hydra Miniatures, and they also Retro Ray Gun. These are games that most people, still don't know them in the area. And part of it does come down to that, the whole, this is popular or that's popular. So that's what I end up playing when I get a chance to go play with people because nobody else has the stuff or, whatever. So, I get to, run those demos. On top of that, like right now I'm having a, slightly hard time finding people that have time to get a game of Last Days in, because
subtle hint there. Yeah,
it's releasing. I'm really liking what I've read about the rules, the creation, the roles, just all that stuff, I'm liking it, and I do want to get out there and play it and try it out. And, everyone's been busy. Everyone does get busy. And one of the things that I've found is that even though I want to go and game, unless I write it on the calendar, it is easy for it to just get pushed off. Like at one point I said I was going to go in and start playing Blood and Plunder like every Monday. Every Monday after work, I was just going to stop at Gigabytes and just, play or, set up and see if anyone wanted to play. I didn't even make the first Monday that I planned on doing that. I even put the stuff in my car. But, by the time I left work and this and that, I was just like, no, I'm just going home.
Well, and it's that regularity.
Yeah, it's a standard life problem where life gets in the way of fun.
Well, some of it's that, and some of it is if I put it on the calendar, like I go, this is a thing, I'm obligating myself to go. And the better part of it is that, I'm also leaving it open. It isn't going to be, it has to be a new game every week or, every other week. It doesn't have to, it can be Blood and Plunder for 3 or 4 sessions and then switch. Or it can be, this week, I was thinking about doing Blood and Plunder, but I grabbed something else, and it is just, it's a skirmish Sunday. So, it's something small that should be played, relatively quick. There's some of the demos or whatever that'll go. Actually, I'm seeing even 2 more games that I want to play. Project Ah and the Rifleman's book for Quar, which are anteaters that are in World War One. Anthropomorphic anteaters. It's pretty awesome. They're sweet models. I picked them up at Kubla Khan from Zombie Smith.
These anthropomorphic anteaters, that's a mouthful.
Anthropomorphic anteaters.
Because I feel like they should have some gas masks.
Some of them do have gas masks.
That is awesome. What's more?
I remember which one I'm talking about. So with all of those things, no matter what you want to choose to play, it's a matter of regularity, right? That is the key for a lot of this stuff. That I remember helping build a gaming community in Alabama at one point, and it was because I was showing up every week. Mm-hmm. A lot of the problems that we see, here in Georgia, things being dropped for whatever things like that, is because it's regularity and people showing up or not showing up, and it's perceptions of store and stuff like that. So as long as you choose to be regular, it doesn't matter what you end up choosing to play. As long as you're regular, that's what the key for consistent growth and success for any chosen game system will end up being, right?
Yeah.
So get it on your calendar, Nick. Be regular.
And we've actually talked about that, especially with like Jim Godden and Dust, because Jim was out there for weeks. I don't even know how long. Like, he's like every Wednesday or Tuesday or something like that. I'm going to be here and, I'll have my Dust stuff to run demos. I'd even picked up some Dust stuff prior to him starting that. And things like that, but it finally something kind of kicked, and people started showing up. Then got the Slow Grow League going, and Dust really picked up. Ironically, my time to play Dust, my time to play games kind of died at the start of the Slow Grow League, because I was all in. I'd paid all the money to play, and I made it out to like one night, and that was when the night was almost over already. So, I just happened to pop in. So it is one of those challenges, and it's also why I kind of chose, like Sunday. Hopefully it's quiet at the store. It's also, it's a weekend, so I have to, kind of, also go with, I just don't have a lot of time during the week.
Yeah, you got to find that work-life balance and all that fun stuff.
So that's that's the goals and stuff like that. And yeah, work-life balance, gaming time to, get your painting in, time to get your, whatever in, it is a challenge. And then sometimes, and I know it's happened to pretty much all of us, you finally get to your painting desk and you're like, yeah, I'm going to paint. And then you sit down and you look at everything that you are going to paint, or, even the one thing you're going to paint. And all of a sudden, every ounce of desire to paint whatever is just gone. You're just like, man, I don't want to do that. You find yourself sitting on your phone, just playing on your phone. Or, you're looking at something online instead of getting to your painting, or, whatever, because, there's just so much.
Well, that's at the end of the day, it has to be fun. If it feels like a chore, then just walk away from it for a bit.
And that's definitely the big challenge for, just, gamers and all that, is that, once again, that whole work-life thing. But we could go on with that for hours and hours and hours, but it is getting late. We're already over our normally aimed for time. We totally bounced around tonight, but it was kind of good, kind of relaxing. Thank you, gentlemen, for being willing to come on kind of last minute.
Of course.
Hey, that's what B Team's all about.
B
Being
Team.
there.
Team.
Oh.
Yeah.
And A Team's just a bunch of assholes.
Hey, we didn't say
it. But all right. So you guys have a good night.
You too.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Skirmish Supremacy. To see more of the antics that Nick and I do, you can check us out on Facebook at Skirmish Supremacy. We also have Twitter, which we can be reached at Skirmish Supreme, because apparently Skirmish Supremacy does not fit in Twitter. And if you want to email us directly, you can reach us at tim@skirmishsupremacy.com or nick@skirmishsupremacy.com. Thanks for listening.